You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Hey everybody, Dave here. I've talked about Delete Me before, and I'm still using it because it still works. It's been a few months now, and I'm just as impressed today as I was when I signed up. Delete Me keeps finding and removing my personal information from data broker sites, and they keep me updated with detailed reports, so I know exactly what's been taken down. I'm genuinely relieved knowing my privacy isn't something I have to worry about every day. The Delete Me team handles everything. It's the set it and forget it peace of mind. And it's not just for individuals. Delete Me also offers solutions for businesses, helping companies protect their employees' personal information and reduce exposure to social engineering and phishing threats. And right now, our listeners get a special deal, 20% off your Delete Me plan. Just go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K. Google issues an emergency patch for a high-severity Chrome browser flaw. Researchers bypass Bitlocker encryption in minutes. A massive Chinese-language black market has shut down. The CFPB cancels plans to curb the sale of personal information by data brokers. A cyberespionage campaign called Operation RoundPress targets vulnerable webmail servers. Google warns that Scattered Spider is now targeting U.S. retail companies. The largest steelmaker in the U.S. shut down operations following a cybersecurity incident. Our guest is Devin Ertel, Chief Information Security Officer at Menlo Security, discussing redefining enterprise security and the long and the short of layoffs. It's Thursday, May 15th, 2025. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. It's great as always to have you with us. Google has issued an emergency patch for a high-severity Chrome browser flaw that could allow full account takeovers. Discovered by Solid Lab researcher Vsevolod Kokorin, the bug stems from weak policy enforcement in Chrome's loader component, letting attackers leak sensitive cross-origin data via malicious HTML. This can expose OAuth tokens through manipulated referrer policies, especially dangerous in authentication flows. Google confirmed a public exploit exists, implying possible active use. The fix is rolling out in the latest Chrome version across platforms. Users should update manually or let Chrome auto-update on restart. This follows a March patch for another critical Chrome Zero Day used in espionage attacks targeting Russian entities, which exploited Chrome's sandbox bypasses to deliver malware. A newly revealed flaw in Microsoft Bitlocker allows attackers to bypass encryption in under 5 minutes using a software-only method called BitPixie. The exploit targets systems without pre-boot authentication and has a public proof of concept available. Unlike hardware-based hacks, BitPixie extracts BitLocker's volume master key entirely through software by exploiting a flaw in the Windows bootloader during PXE soft reboots. 2 attack versions for Linux and Windows PE allow access using signed components with no need for physical tampering or a full disk image. The attack is stealthy and effective on unattended or stolen devices. Experts strongly advise enabling pre-boot authentication to block access to the VMK and prevent such breaches. A massive Chinese-language black market for crypto scams and money laundering, known as Huawei Guarantee, has shut down after Telegram banned thousands of related accounts. This underground marketplace operated openly on Telegram, facilitating over $27 billion in illicit transactions, mainly using Tether. Vendors offered services like money laundering, victim data, and even tools used in forced labor at scam compounds across Southeast Asia. The takedown followed an investigation by crypto tracing firm Elliptic and media inquiries by Wired. Another market, Jinbi Guarantee, was also banned but may attempt to relaunch. Telegram's crackdown is seen as a major victory against online fraud, though experts warn these groups may shift to other platforms. The operation's ties to powerful Cambodian elites underscores the challenge of dismantling such networks. Elsewhere, German police have seized the crypto platform EXCH, also called Exchange, and over $30 million in digital assets linked to money laundering in the $1.46 billion Bybit hack. Authorities acted swiftly after Exchange announced plans to shut down amid pressure from law enforcement. The platform had rejected Bybit's request to freeze stolen funds, later traced by Elliptic to North Korea's Lazarus Group. Launched in 2014, Exchange processed about $1.9 billion in crypto and operated on both the ClearNet and Darknet. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has withdrawn a proposed rule aimed at curbing data brokers from selling sensitive personal information without consent. Initially introduced to combat commercial surveillance and protect national security, the rule would have required brokers to obtain consent before sharing data like Social Security numbers and financial histories. Acting CFPB Director Russell Vaught said the move aligns with revised policies and interpretations of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Critics, including privacy advocates and veterans groups, argue the rollback protects corporate interests at the expense of public safety and national security. They warn that data brokers continue to endanger Americans, particularly military personnel, by enabling scams, surveillance, and blackmail. The rule's cancellation follows a broader downsizing of the CFPB under President Trump's administration and pressure from fintech industry lobbyists. Across the pond, the Belgian Court of Appeal has ruled the transparency and consent framework used by Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and others to justify online tracking is illegal under the GDPR. The court upheld a 2022 decision by the Belgian Data Protection Authority confirming multiple violations, including failures to secure data, properly obtain consent, and ensure transparency. The transparency and consent framework underpins the tracking-heavy real-time bidding advertising system active on 80% of the web. Critics, led by Dr. Johnny Ryan of the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, say tech firms use deceptive consent pop-ups to mask widespread data misuse. The ruling applies across Europe and pressures the ad industry to move away from surveillance-based models. The court also found IAB Europe, which created the TCF, violated GDPR, although not for actions within the RTB protocol itself. A cyberespionage campaign called Operation RoundPress, likely run by the SEDNet Group, also known as APT28 or Fancy Bear, is targeting vulnerable webmail servers like Roundcube, Horde, MDaemon, and Zimbra to steal sensitive email data. Researchers from Menlo Security reveal attackers use spear phishing emails to exploit cross-site scripting flaws, including a zero-day in MDaemon. The payloads, dubbed SpyPress, steal credentials, emails, and contact lists and can bypass two-factor authentication. Some even set up malicious mail forwarding rules for persistent access. Targets are primarily defense and government entities in Ukraine, Eastern Europe, and globally. SpyPress variants are obfuscated and communicate with hard-coded CNC servers. The campaign underscores the continued targeting of outdated or unpatched webmail systems in cyberespionage, particularly during times of geopolitical tension like the war in Ukraine. Security experts urge regular patching and phishing awareness to mitigate these risks. Google warns that hackers tied to the Scattered Spider Group, known for crippling UK retailers like M&S, are now targeting US retail companies. These attackers are skilled at bypassing strong cybersecurity defenses and tend to focus on one industry at a time. Scattered Spider has also been linked to past breaches of MGM Resorts and Caesars Entertainment. U.S. retail security groups are actively monitoring the threat, with Google helping coordinate briefings to prepare major companies like Costco, McDonald's, and Lowe's. The largest U.S. steelmaker, Nucor, temporarily shut down some operations following a cybersecurity incident involving unauthorized access to its IT systems. The company activated its incident response plan, took affected systems offline, and is working to restore operations. While Nucor didn't specify which facilities were impacted, it emphasized the shutdown was precautionary. With 300 sites and 25,000 employees, Nucor is a major global player. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Devin Ertel, Chief Information Security Officer at Menlo Security. We're discussing redefining enterprise security and the long and the short of layoffs. Stay with us. And now, a word from our sponsor, ThreatLocker. Keeping your system secure shouldn't mean constantly reacting to threats. ThreatLocker helps you take a different approach by giving you full control over what software can run in your environment. If it's not approved, it doesn't run. Simple as that. It's a way to stop ransomware and other attacks before they start, without adding extra complexity to your day. See how ThreatLocker can help you lock down your environment at www.threatlocker.com. Let's be real. Navigating security compliance can feel like assembling IKEA furniture without the instructions. You know you need it, but it takes forever and you're never quite sure if you've done it right. That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is a trust management platform that automates up to 90% of the work for frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, and HIPAA, getting you audit-ready in weeks, not months. Whether you're a founder, an engineer, or managing IT and security for the first time, Vanta helps you prove your security posture without taking over your life. More than 10,000 companies, including names like Atlassian and Quora, trust Vanta to monitor compliance, streamline risk, and speed up security reviews by up to 5 times. And the ROI? A recent IDC report found Vanta saves businesses over $500,000 a year and pays for itself in just 3 months. For a limited time, you can get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber. It is my pleasure to be joined here at RSAC Conference by Devin Ertel, who is the Chief Information Security Officer at Menlo Security. Devin, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, before we dig into our topics today, it's a busy RSA.
Yeah.
Anything in particular you're looking forward to as you walk the show floor?
I check out vendors, just, like everyone else here doing that. I like hearing strategies. Usually you will find topics that are going to be, they're up and coming and what people are thinking about, and you have like a mind share here. And I'll be interested to see how many times people say agentic while I'm here.
Yes. It was funny. We were joking about how like we're sort of on the trailing edge of the hype cycle for AI, but now we've added the word agentic, so we're back up again.
I feel like I heard it like 2 months ago, and now I've heard it 1,000 times already.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, let's talk about enterprise security. I mean, for folks who are not familiar with the types of things you and your colleagues at Menlo do, can you give us just a brief overview?
Yeah, so Menlo started over 10 years ago in the remote browser isolation space, so securing the web.
Yeah.
So when users are going out and browsing stuff, if there's a compromised website or something's going on, we actually have our own cloud browser that actually everything executes there, and we re-render to make everything safe for the user. Since then, we have added, many more features, and that you could almost say it's what we're calling now workspace security. So they've been in the browser. There's a lot of browser experts that know way more about the browser than I do there, but it's kind of crazy to think about. Like 10 years ago, I don't think we thought we were not using the browser as much as we do now. Like I'm literally in a browser that's basically...
I mean, I think it's central to most people's computing experience, certainly on the desktop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we had thick clients and, all this stuff, but now, it's kind of crazy how that's changed so much.
So help me understand, for folks who aren't familiar with it, this kind of browser, how does it differ from the day-to-day browser that I'm using that comes with my computer?
Well, the beauty about Menlo is that no one would even know. You use your browser.
Okay.
And we add the protections, so your user wouldn't even know that all these protections. There might be some things like, hey, you're downloading malware, we stopped it.
Right.
So they might see things like that, but the day-to-day use, you wouldn't even know that it's even happening, which as a security practitioner, as myself, the beautiful solution your end user should never know, right? You do not want to be a hindrance. You want to be able to let the business run. So that's a good thing, right? So we integrate with Chrome. You can put us as a proxy and get those. And you can put us in front of applications, and we're kind of transparent to the user.
This word I've heard of, I think, to pre-detonate things. So
So think sandbox when absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Well, what are some of the obstacles that you find some of your customers are facing here when they're coming to you and saying, hey, we think this might be a good fit for us? What problems are they trying to solve?
So of all the feature sets, with the beginning one, I think everyone was trying to solve like users going and downloading malware, right? That's like a very common thing, and that's what the remote browser isolation. What's happening now is we kind of flip it on its head, and we put the isolation in front of applications. I like to call it like a WAF on steroids. So we protect the application itself, and then we protect end user. What if you have a contractor? Normally you would, 6-month contractor comes in, you give them a whole laptop, and then you got to go get the laptop back. Sending the laptop and getting the laptop is hard enough in itself. With this new solution, you basically can put all these controls in. Oh, you don't want to let them download anything? You can't download anything when you go to this app. Oh, you don't want to upload anything? You can't do that. You can watermark it to make sure they can't screenshot things. You can essentially lock in this application and ensure that nothing reaches the endpoint, because you can't really trust that endpoint being that you don't have it. So.
And is this outside or inside of the browser?
All in the browser.
It's all in the browser?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you can put all these protections in place without having to procure a whole laptop with EDR on it, with all these security controls, and it's zero trust, right? And you can manipulate. You can even manipulate the page. I don't want them to see the comment section of this. So it's very very tuning.
You can actually go into the pages they're visiting and restrict. Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating.
And since it's in the cloud, they can't change it. If it was on the endpoint, the user can fiddle if they're technical enough.
And I suppose, for like you mentioned a contractor, if someone wants to be in like a BYOD position, the person doesn't have to, the security professional doesn't have to be in charge of the device.
Yes.
Because they have control of the browser.
Yes, and it can be a pain shipping a laptop and
Sure.
building it. And
it's getting it back that I think is the part that, you know, right?
That is getting it back. You're absolutely right.
Right. No, we really need it back. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's touch on the hot topic, which is AI, of course. How does that play into any of the things that you all are doing?
So that's what we're using. We have a couple of things that we're using, like computer vision AI, and that would be protecting like credential compromise. So a phishing email comes in, they mimic your Okta page or whatever, your Microsoft O365 page, steal your credentials.
Right.
This would detect that, basically using computer vision, knowing, hey, this is not a O365 website, but it has your logo, it has this on there, this seems a little thing, it would just immediately, I think we call it 0-hour detection, like it would immediately detect it, even if categorization, wasn't labeled bad yet. And a lot of times what the actors do is they just bring up a site for a little bit and then,
right.
Or put it up, let it be under the radar, get a good categorization, and then you can fish people onto it. That's one way. The other way, which we're really looking into it, is with data, and that's where workspace security comes into play. I always say, like, back in the day, I don't want to age myself here, but we had mainframes and databases.
Sure.
And we could put our arms around it all, right?
That's right. I want to hug my server.
Yes. And we did. And I think as a security industry, we did a great job with all the firewalls, with the detonation before things come in.
Yeah.
But now, and I really feel like the COVID era kind of kicked that up, like the digital transformation and all that. There's so many SaaS tools. There's so many like messaging apps, and data is just all over the place now, right? So we're looking at AI to automatically detect data. Whether or not you labeled it correctly, like a lot of people, they try to go around and put the labels on. Someone can forget that label. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that, where AI can come in, see, oh, there's a whole bunch of social securities on this document. Are you sure you want to email it to this person and detect it real time, redact, and let it go through?
Right. So, you have the opportunity to kind of save the users from themselves.
Absolutely.
The errors, and the unintentional sharing of things.
And if they actually wanted a document back, they can. So that's what we're looking at now, and that's what we're calling workspace security. It's like the modern thing where the browser is, and also there's all these like back-end API calls. Like data is spread out a lot, and a lot of people do not know where it is. It's a hard thing to do. It's a challenge right now.
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of people, ignorance is bliss. How do you sleep at night? I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I trust people like you to know what's going on behind the scenes. Well, let's touch on zero trust, because that's an important part of the equation as well. What do you all have? What's your relationship with zero trust? Yeah. So with couple of our products, I always like to say with the browser one, when people are browsing the web in general, you're not even trusting the web, right? So, but this is a different take on zero trust, but I do like to say that. The other one, when I said it, we flipped it on the other side, is, so when you give that contractor that app, back in the day we used to have to use VPNs, right? Right. And you're essentially tunneling them into your corporate underbelly, I call it, because the controls get weaker as you go in usually on these big organizations. In fact, I used to be a pen tester for many years, and when I compromised something and I could go through a VPN, I was like, game is over now. Because the assumption is there's enough protection with the VPN that if you've made it past the VPN, now you got to tunnel into we got to tunnel into the network, and then you just pivot onto other things. Sure. Where this, you're giving access to a single app. You're not going anywhere but that app. So, and then, like I said, you can put a ton of other protections around there to protect that app itself, so they can't go elsewhere. So that is like the zero trust. In my mind, I've been in organizations where we were always trying to like micro-segment everything, and I know there's a lot of solutions for that, but that's really challenging of understanding where every server is talking to what and trying to zero trust it that way. This is always taking an approach of zero trust at the door, where you can't even get in anywhere, and then you basically are just zero trusting that user to that app, provide the security controls, provide the visibility of what they're doing, provide the ability to quickly cut it off if needed. So that is our play, which we call SAA, Secure Application Access, essentially is what that is. The folks who are experiencing success with this approach, right? The thing that you are saying, we think this is the way to go at it. What does that look like for them? What are the things they're enjoying by embracing this approach?
Well, one is like the use case I used earlier, being a contractor, that, or bring your own device, you brought that up, like even your phones, you can do that. You can literally say, okay, so you're allowing people to have their own phone, but maybe you shouldn't access the code base, or maybe you shouldn't access the cloud infrastructure, but I will allow you to access, the lunch menu.
Right, okay, sure.
So you have that ability. You can really get granular with this stuff. And so with bring your own device, and I can tell you the one thing that a lot of people I think is overlooked is the actual security it's putting on the application itself. As a former pen tester, attacking the app, you get access, and then you attack the app. You get access to the host, the end user, then you attack the app. It's a WAF, a web application security firewall. It's really hard to manage. It's a lot of rules, a lot of false positives. This is a plug and play. Like they cannot see or do or alter any of the requests that come into the application. So doing the SQL injection is next to impossible because unless you somehow figure a way to do it in the form and individually. So you're really protecting the app. What also you're doing, so what attackers are doing now is, so everyone's going on the FIDO two-factor authentication because the attackers figured out how to push bomb on phones.
Right.
They figured out how to phish the one-time codes. So now what they're doing, as people are using FIDO, which is a much more secure two-factor, they're just taking the cookie. So think when you authenticate via FIDO,
right?
And it's like, okay, well, I'll take this cookie now, and then I'll go and access it. With this solution, the cookie actually never also touches the endpoint. So if that endpoint was compromised, they're not going to be able to get that authentication cookie and bring it somewhere else and then gain access. So you really are zero trusting that device where you're locking it down quite a bit without having a whole bunch of agents and ADR and all that. You don't need all that stuff.
Right.
I'm not saying you don't need ADR. I believe that's a foundational thing, but yes.
Well, but when you all are designing and deploying this product, how do you balance for your users ease of use with powerful options, right?
Absolutely. Well, internally, I say we're customer zero, and we literally, everything that we build, we put out in our company. So sometimes I have made users unhappy. So which then gives feedback, and we change things like that. So there are things you can do. So you could say you want Okta to be that factor, and then there's a cloud browser login that happens after the fact. You can loosen those controls because you have the door in front of that. That is the Okta and the FIDO and your password rotation and whatever you're doing authentication security-wise. And then that allows you into the gate to access the cloud browser itself. So you can depending on your use case and if you're in a big government and very sensitive, you might not want to. It all depends on your company and its risk appetite on that one of how you want to crank those levers.
Yeah. Where do you suppose this is all heading? I mean, we were talking about how the browser is central to most people's desktop computing experience. Is this the future? Is not having that soft underbelly on your machine available? Do you think that's where we're heading?
As a security professional, I would love everyone to have a Chromebook.
Yeah, right.
But it's a cultural shift that, in fact, I was just talking to another practitioner. There's a joke where it's like, to pay a bill, the old school, we have to open up the laptop. We don't bring out the phone. And I'm still that way, right? So
That's right.
So there's always a cultural shift. But do many people, besides an engineer that is like coding, that's going to take a bigger cultural shift.
Yeah.
But like a salesperson or a marketing person, I think a Chromebook will be fine. The amount of stuff you can do in a web browser, which they already do. If you see their laptops, it's just a Chrome page with 1,000 tabs open.
I'm with you. I'm sure our listeners have heard me talk about, when I was the time to outfit my elderly father with a computer, and he'd been a Mac user for many, many years, but there was a time when Chromebook, for my sake,
absolutely, it's like troubleshooting.
It was just, it's kind of bulletproof. The simplicity fit the user case, in that particular case.
Yeah. I think that's where it's going. Which the interesting thing is, Chrome, Safari, you name it, the browser.
Yeah.
They're not like a corporate application, right? And we haven't put the protections in place, and that's where Menlo has come in and said, okay, use your browser, let us put a little more security on. And Chrome is doing stuff where they're continually adding, but you have a little more control over it, rather than just being because it's basically an operating system now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Devin, thank you so much for taking the time for us. It's a real pleasure to get to chat with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the common denominator in security incidents? Escalations and lateral movement. When a privileged account is compromised, attackers can seize control of critical assets. With bad directory hygiene and years of technical debt, identity attack paths are easy targets for threat actors to exploit, but hard for defenders to detect. This poses risk in Active Directory, Entra ID, and hybrid configurations. Identity leaders are reducing such risks with attack path management. You can learn how attack path management is connecting identity and security teams while reducing risk with Bloodhound Enterprise, powered by SpecterOps. Head to specterops.io today to learn more. SpecterOps, see your attack paths the way adversaries do. And finally, layoffs are hitting the cybersecurity sector hard this summer, with major players like Microsoft and CrowdStrike slimming down despite healthy profits. Microsoft recently let go of 6,000 employees, many in tech roles, as it shifts more investment into AI. CrowdStrike trimmed 500 positions while announcing record earnings. The message seems clear. Automation is in, and human jobs are negotiable. But behind the financials are real people, skilled professionals who've spent years building defenses, now finding themselves out of work. And the ripple effects aren't just personal. Experts warn that sudden layoffs, especially in cyber teams, can carry serious security risks. Departing employees may, intentionally or not, walk out with sensitive data, and stretched thin security teams may miss emerging threats. As SANS Institute's Rob T. Lee puts it, you're not just losing people, you're losing the people who know how to stop attacks. Companies might see cost savings now, but the long-term bill could come in the form of a breach headline. And nobody wants that. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our CyberWire producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. And now a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud. Identity is the new battleground, and attackers are exploiting stolen identities to infiltrate your organization. Traditional defenses can't keep up. SpyCloud's holistic identity threat protection helps security teams uncover and automatically remediate hidden exposures across your users, from breaches, malware, and phishing to neutralize identity-based threats like account takeover, fraud, and ransomware. Don't let invisible threats compromise your business. Get your free corporate darknet exposure report at spycloud.com/cyberwire and see what attackers already know. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire.